Clever Cub Learns About Love by Bob Hartman, illustrated by Steve Brown. And we'll skip to the copyright. We'll skip that. All right. Mama Bear and Clever Cub sat by the river at the end of a long, happy day. I love you, Mama Bear, said Clever Cub. I love you too, Mama Bear replied. She gave her little cub a big bear hug. There are many ways to say I love you, you know. I know, said Clever Cub. He picked up a pine cone and handed it to his mamma. You can give someone a present. Thank you, Mama Bear said with a smile. That is a very snazzy pine cone. But there are other ways, too. This river reminds me of a story about one of them. Is it a story from the Bible? Clever Cub asked. I love those. It is, Mama Bear smiled. Good guess. Then she began the story. Many years ago, God's special people, the Hebrews, were slaves in a land called Egypt. What were slaves? Asked Clever Cub. Slaves were people who had to work for nothing. They were not free to do what they wanted to do. They had to do just what their masters told them to do. Their lives were very, very hard. The thing is, God blessed his people with more and more children, and that worried Pharaoh, the ruler of Egypt. There are too many Hebrews, he said, and soon they will be too mighty. If we are not careful, they will take over our land. So he made a terrible, horrible rule. Clever Cub listened hard. He pulled his ear. He did that sometimes when he was worried. Mama Bear whispered. Pharaoh's rule said this: every baby Hebrew boy must be thrown into the Nile River. Oh no, Clever Cub gasped. That is terrible. And horrible, too. He pulled both ears. It was, Mama Bear nodded. But one Hebrew mama had a plan. A clever plan? Asked Clever Cub. Very clever, Mama Bear replied. She made a basket out of the tall, strong reeds that grew by the river. She made it big enough to hold her baby boy. Then she covered the basket with tar so the water couldn't get inside. What do you think she did next? Did she put her baby in the basket? Clever Cub asked. She did. You are a clever cub. And she was a clever mama. She put the baby boy she loved so much in the basket to save him. Then she set the basket floating in the water among the river reeds. Clever Cub was thinking hard. That clever mama saved her boy from being hurt by Pharaoh's terrible, horrible rule. Is that how she said, I love you? Asked Clever Cub. Yes, it is, Mama Bear replied. But there's more. Someone needed to keep an eye on that basket. The river was full of dangers, snake bites and hippo stomps and crocodile chomps. But that baby boy had a big sister, and she was brave. She went down by the dangerous river, and she watched over her brother. She made sure that nothing bad happened to him. Oh, Clever Cub said, I bet that was scary. Down there with the snakes and the hippos and the crocodiles and with the gnats and the mosquitoes. It was probably itchy. Clever Cub squirmed and wriggled. He was feeling itchy too. I'm sure it was, Mama Bear nodded. Even though it wasn't easy, she did what she could to protect her baby brother. And that's love too? Asked Clever Cub. It is, replied Mama. But there's even more. One day, Pharaoh's own daughter went down to the Nile. Back then, even princesses used the river water for their baths, just like we bears do. Clever Cub looked surprised. When the princess was there, she spotted the basket. She sent her servants to bring it to her. Oh no, Clever Cub said. I'm sure that's what the baby sister thought too, said Mama Bear. When Pharaoh's daughter looked inside the basket, she saw the baby. She knew he was a Hebrew child. Clever Cub hid his eyes. Did she throw him into the river like her father told the Egyptians to do? No, she didn't, Mama said. The baby cried, and the princess felt sorry for him. She wanted to take care of him. Then the baby sister was brave again. She walked right up to the princess and said, Shall I get a Hebrew woman to feed the baby for you? The princess nodded and said, Go. The girl went right away and told her mama, Clever Cub shouted. Yes, she did, Mama Bear said. And the Hebrew mama cared for her baby boy until he was old enough to live in Pharaoh's palace with the princess. But she was still a Hebrew boy. He was still in danger. The princess decided to adopt the baby as her very own son to keep him safe, and that's when Pharaoh's daughter gave the boy his name, Moses, which means I pulled him out of the water. Is that love too? Asked Clever Cub. Definitely, Mama said. Her father saw the Hebrews as slaves and enemies, but the princess saw the precious person just like her, and that is love. I love that story, Clever Cub grinned. And I'm going to see if I could pull something out of the river water too. Then I'd better come with you, Mama Bear replied, to watch over me and to make sure nothing bad happens to me, asked Clever Cub. Because you love me? Mama Bear nodded. Yes, definitely because I love you. Now, for the clever readers. Clever Cub is a curious little bear who loves to cuddle up with the Bible and learn about God. In this story, Clever Cub hears from the Bible about a baby boy who is loved very much. You can read the same exciting story in Exodus 1 and 2, verses 1 through 10. This story has some scary things in it, but we can always be sure that no matter what happens, God loves us and wants us to be safe. When have you ever felt brave? It's brave to show love for others, even when it's hard to do. How can you show love for someone today? And I can tell you how I show love by reading these books to you guys, because I love you very, very much. Bye.